Judge Alcott's gavel strikes the wooden block with finality. Motion granted. The court will allow Mr. Wright additional time to review the medical records. The sound echoes through the courtroom like a verdict already decided, and my stomach plunges as if the floor beneath me has suddenly vanished. Again, another delay. The 5th postponement in 8 exhausting months since my mother passed away. I clutch the edge of the table until my fingers ache, my knuckles draining of color as I watch my father lean toward his attorney. Leonard Wright, celebrated corporate tax attorney and lifelong strategist of control, murmurs something under his breath to Mark Delaney. Whatever he says makes both men exchange knowing smiles. The sight makes my pulse pound violently in my ears. A thin sheen of sweat gathers along my hairline despite the relentless chill of the courtroom air conditioning. The familiar pressure grips my chest, squeezing tighter and tighter until every breath feels shallow, incomplete. "Your Honor," my father begins, rising with the calm authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed, "we request further time to examine Mrs. Foster's medical records. There are discrepancies concerning her treatment decisions that could affect the distribution of assets." Assets. The word rings hollow in my mind. That is what my mother's life has been reduced to in this room. $85,000 in savings, a modest 2-bedroom townhouse in Tacoma, the small sanctuary where she rebuilt herself after the divorce shattered her world. The antique oak chest that had been passed down through 4 generations of her family, a tangible thread connecting past and present. These fragments are all that remain of Elena Wright. No, Elena Foster. She reclaimed her maiden name after breaking free from my father, a quiet act of defiance in a battle she never chose. And now I find myself fighting that same battle, confronting the same man, watching him twist the system to his advantage, just as he always has. "Mr. Wright, this is the 5th such request," Clara Ruiz states firmly. She sits beside me, my attorney, and once my closest friend in law school. Ms. Wright has already provided complete medical documentation twice. Judge Alcott gives a brief nod, his attention already drifting to the next matter on his schedule. The decision was settled long before we stepped into this courtroom. The proceedings feel like a performance with a predetermined ending. How is this even possible? He already stripped her of everything during the divorce 14 years ago. Why does he want this too? Why can't he allow her even the smallest dignity in death? I close my eyes and suddenly I am 15 again, standing in our kitchen while my mother tells me through trembling tears that my father will not be coming home. His affair with Vanessa Clark from his firm had been ongoing for months. A younger woman, a new beginning, a replacement for a wife of 17 years and a teenage daughter. The memory shifts. I see my mother in her librarian uniform at the Tacoma Public Library, carefully shelving books, working part-time to keep us afloat while Leonard flourished professionally, made partner, and purchased a lake house. She never voiced bitterness, never spoke harshly about him in front of me. "He's still your father," she would say gently, though the pain in her eyes revealed the truth she refused to speak. Clara's hand tightens around mine beneath the table. "Don't let him see how much this affects you," she whispers. "That's exactly what he wants." I open my eyes and study Judge Alcott closely, the subtle inclination of his head whenever my father speaks, the dismissive flicker of irritation when Clara raises objections. It feels like more than ordinary judicial bias. Something deeper is at work here, something hidden beneath procedural language. I can't remain silent any longer. Before Clara can restrain me, I push myself to my feet. "Your Honor, we've already submitted complete medical records, twice. My voice sounds stronger than I expect. My mother's oncologist verified her diagnosis and treatment plan. There were no irregularities in her care." A heavy silence settles over the courtroom. My father's expression darkens, displeasure tightening his features. "My daughter is understandably overwhelmed by her mother's passing," Leonard says, his voice smooth with practiced sympathy, yet dripping with quiet condescension. "It's been a difficult time for all of us." All of us? He never once visited my mother during the 8 brutal months of chemotherapy, radiation treatments, and eventual hospice care? Not a single visit? Judge Alcott removes his glasses and pinches the bridge of his nose. "I understand your frustration, Ms. Wright, but these matters require careful scrutiny. Your father has presented legitimate concerns that must be examined." Legitimate concerns. With every ruling, another piece of my mother's final legacy erodes. If he succeeds, I lose more than an inheritance. I lose her final declaration of independence, the home she built with her own strength, the savings she painstakingly gathered, the heirloom she entrusted to me. "Document every unusual ruling," Clara murmurs as I lower myself back into my seat. "We're preparing for an appeal." I nod, though we both understand the reality. Appeals demand resources I simply do not possess. As a public defender in Seattle, my salary barely manages my student loans and rent. Leonard is well aware of this. He is counting it. Court is adjourned until November 12th, Judge Alcott announces. Parties must submit any further documentation by November 5th. Another month of uncertainty. Another month of watching my father methodically dismantle my mother's wishes, while a judge who clearly favors him permits it all. After the hearing, Clara walks beside me through the courthouse parking garage. Our footsteps echo sharply against the cold concrete as we navigate rows of vehicles. "This isn't standard procedure, Brittany," she says, glancing at her phone. "Alcott's decisions consistently fall outside typical probate practice. I've contacted colleagues who regularly appear before him. And," she shakes her head slowly, "he doesn't usually behave like this. Something about your case is unusual." My phone vibrates in my pocket. An unfamiliar number with a Virginia area code. I almost ignore it, but answer at the last second. "Is this Brittany Wright?" a woman's voice asks, firm yet composed. "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Renee Barrett. I knew your mother years ago. I learned about your case through some old connections." I glance at Clara, silently asking who this could be. She only shrugs. "I worked with Elena in the Air Force," the woman continues, "before she met your father. My mother had rarely spoken about her time in the military. She described it simply as clerical work before college, where she met Leonard. Nothing significant or dangerous. Your mother kept things from that period," Renee says quietly. "Things that matter now. Things that could help you understand what's happening with your inheritance." My breath catches. "What things?" "Not over the phone. Can we meet tomorrow? Somewhere private?" I hesitate, looking at Clara, who raises a questioning eyebrow. "I'll text you the location. Noon tomorrow. Come alone." The line disconnects. Clara studies my expression. What was that about? I stare at the phone, unsure whether to trust this mysterious caller or continue fighting a battle that increasingly feels rigged.
"Maybe nothing," I say at last. "Maybe everything." I think of my mother's final days, of the way she gripped my hand with unexpected strength, urging me to protect what was hers. "Don't let him take this too, Brittany. Promise me." My mother deserved more than this, I tell Clara, determination hardening within me. I won't let them erase her. The following day, sunlight streams through the cafe windows, stretching long shadows across the worn wooden table where I wait. I arrive early, studying each person who enters, uncertain what to expect from a woman claiming to hold secrets about my mother. Renee Barrett arrives precisely at noon. She appears to be in her mid-50s, silver threads woven through her dark hair, which is pulled back into a practical bun. Her sharp gray eyes assess everything. She approaches directly, extending her hand. "Brittany Wright," she says. Her handshake is firm, efficient. "You knew my mother." She sits opposite me, orders black coffee, and waits until the server leaves. "Your mother was USAF Signals Intelligence in the late 90s, she says quietly, assigned to Operation Blue Harbor, not the librarian narrative your father promoted after the divorce. My coffee freezes halfway to my mouth. That can't be true. She worked office jobs. That was her cover. Elena had extraordinary talent with patterns and encryption, one of our best. Her expression softens briefly. She never told you because of confidentiality agreements, later because of what happened. What happened? Your father and Richard Alcott served as young legal advisors on the same operation. They expanded surveillance beyond authorized targets, used gathered information for influence, for leverage. My stomach knots. Are you saying? Your father manipulated legal connections to ensure the divorce favored him. Judge Alcott was deliberately assigned to your mother's case, and now yours. The cafe noise fades as realization settles, the devastating divorce settlement, the current probate rulings that consistently favor my father. There were others affected, Renee continues, a civilian activist who died in what was called an accident. Elena knew but lacked proof. My hands tremble. She slides a small notebook toward me. Don't open this here. When you do, remember the phrase winter lantern. Check your mother's chest. There may be confirmation there. Understanding crashes over me. My mother's quiet endurance during the divorce had not been weakness. It had been protection. Was she being blackmailed? Renee's expression answers before she speaks. Not with money, with safety, with your safety. Fragments of my mother's warnings resurface, cryptic comments about powerful men in systems protecting themselves. I force myself to think like an investigator rather than a grieving daughter. I need evidence. None taken, Renee says approvingly. Smart. Back at Clara's office later, she searches legal databases while I pace. Leonard filed a motion regarding the oak chest yesterday, she says, turning her laptop toward me. He claims sentimental value, but the language suggests something else. It's not money, I realize. It's fear. Clara nods. His career would be destroyed if this is true. They'll abuse the system to protect themselves, I say. Clara closes her laptop, her expression grave. That makes them dangerous. Yet for the first time since my mother's death, clarity replaces despair. I'm clearing my schedule, Clara says. This is about justice. Renee's card rests on the desk. A retired major named Caleb Monroe may corroborate the operation if evidence surfaces. My mother prepared this before she died, I whispered. She anticipated this fight. Clara squeezes my hand. Then we'll make sure her preparations matter. That night, I run my fingers along the intricate runes carvings on my mother's oak chest, recalling a birthday card she once gave me. Always look beneath the roses, where true beauty hides. My fingernail catches on a slight gap in the wood. I press the carving and hear a faint click. A hidden compartment slides open. Inside rests a yellowed envelope containing old photographs and a leather-bound journal filled with my mother's meticulous handwriting. The images show 2 young men in military uniforms beside surveillance equipment. I recognize my father immediately. Beside him stands Richard Alcott. The journal details surveillance operations, ethical violations, and suspicious deaths. Each of my father's career promotions align with the events recorded. She documented everything. I call Clara. I found something. How strong is it? Photos, journal entries, dates that match exactly what Renee described. Silence follows. Then Clara asks, "What do you intend to do?" I'm thinking it's time I had a conversation with my father. The next morning, I enter the offices of Wright, Patterson, and Delaney on the 32nd floor of a downtown skyscraper. His secretary attempts to stop me, but I walk past. My father looks up as I enter, irritation crossing his face. "Brittany, I am preparing for a meeting. This won't take long." I close the door, but leave it slightly open. I place a single photograph on his desk. His face drains of color. "I found Mom's journal and photos from Operation Blue Harbor," I say. "Where did you get this?" "She kept records, detailed accounts." "You're not fighting over $85,000, I continue. "You're hiding this." He rises, towering over me. "You have no idea what you're dealing with. These matters were classified." "Was Jamie Winter's death classified too?" His jaw tightens. "Drop the case by Friday," I say, "or I'll request Judge Alcott's recusal with this evidence." "You're making a mistake." "No, you did." I leave, feeling his stare burning into my back. In the elevator, my hands tremble from adrenaline. For the first time, I hold the advantage. Later that evening, Clara plays back the recording from the phone in my pocket. "You stood your ground perfectly," she says, smiling. "Your voice didn't waver once." We sit in her apartment, takeout containers spread across her coffee table. Renee studies Mom's journal, nodding occasionally. "Your mother documented everything," Renee confirms. "These dates match exactly what I remember. The Gardner surveillance, Jamie's accident." She points to an entry. "This note about the security clearance adjustments that happened exactly as she described." My phone buzzes with a text from Caleb Monroe, the retired major Renee connected me with yesterday. "Just reviewed the evidence. Matches what I witnessed during my time there. I'll testify if needed." "We have another ally," I tell them, showing the message. "And possibly one more," Clara adds. "Joyce from the Quip's office mentioned she's noticed irregularities in how your case has been handled. She's willing to sign an affidavit." I sink back into the couch, overwhelmed by this shift in momentum. For months, I felt powerless against Dad's influence. Now I have evidence, allies, and leverage. Mom made sure she'd have everything I needed to fight back. I run my fingers along the journal's worn cover. She knew this day might come. Renee refills her wine glass. "So what's next? Do you push for complete victory now, or wait for their response?" The question hangs in the air. Friday is 2 days away. Dad will either capitulate or escalate. "I've shown him one photo," I say slowly. "He knows I have more, but not how much." "Let's see what he does first." Clara nods. "Smart. Force him to make the next move." I close the journal, feeling Mom's presence in every carefully documented page. This is just the beginning. The real battle with much higher stakes is still to come. On Monday morning, the courtroom doors swing shut behind me with a hollow thud as I exit Judge Alcott's chambers. My hands tremble slightly as I clutch the stack of legal documents to my chest. "They filed an emergency motion," I tell Clara, who's waiting in the hallway. "My father's team is claiming Mom's chest might contain classified information related to national security."
Clara's eyebrows shoot up. That's a serious escalation. Leonard stood there with this solemn expression, talking about his duty to protect sensitive information. I mimic his grave tone. If the court permits unrestricted access to potentially classified documents, we could unintentionally compromise national security protocols. We push through the courthouse doors into the bright Seattle afternoon. The contrast between the dim courtroom and sunshine momentarily blinds me. And Alcott just nodded along. I continued, said the court must consider potential classified information carefully before proceeding. Clara steers me toward a bench beneath a maple tree, dropping crimson leaves onto the courthouse lawn. This is straight out of the delay tactics playbook. I've seen this before with whistleblower cases. She flips through the motion papers. They're trying to scare you with potential criminal charges for possession of classified documents. My stomach tightens. Criminal charges? For an inheritance my mother specifically left me? It's a pressure tactic. They know the chest contains something damaging. Clara taps the document. My research shows this same approach in 3 other whistleblower cases from former intelligence employees. Delay, intimidate, then settle privately with ironclad NDAs. So what do we do? I ask, watching a custodian sweep fallen leaves from the courthouse steps. Clara leans closer, lowering her voice despite the empty courtyard. We prepare a parallel track, continue the probate case, but simultaneously file with the Judicial Ethics Committee about Alcott's connections to your father's firm. That's risky, I say. What if they escalate further? They're already escalating. Clara holds my gaze. The question is whether we fight back or fold. The afternoon sun casts long shadows across the courthouse steps as I consider our dwindling options. At the public defender's office later that day, my supervisor, Liam, stops by my cubicle. His presence feels like a storm cloud in our already cramped workspace. Brittany, can we talk about your court appearances this week? His tone suggests this isn't a casual check-in. I minimize the research I've been doing on judicial ethics complaints. Of course. You've missed 3 preliminary hearings this month. Rachel had to cover your juvenile case yesterday. My cheeks burn. I know, I've been dealing with some personal matters. Your colleagues are carrying extra weight while you handle this inheritance situation. Liam's eyes drift to the stack of probate documents on my desk. I understand family matters are important, but your cases here need your full attention. I've been working nights to stay caught up, I say, gesturing to the dock circles under my eyes. I haven't let anything slip through the cracks. Just make sure it stays that way. His skeptical expression says he's not convinced. Public defense isn't just a job, Brittany. People's freedoms depend on us showing up. After he leaves, I drop my head into my hands. The financial pressure of fighting this case is draining my modest savings. Last night, I calculated the cost of continuing at current rates. I'll be completely broke in 2 months unless I take on extra assignments or abandon the case. My phone buzzes with a text from Clara. Call me as soon as possible. I step outside to the small courtyard behind our building. Gray clouds have moved in, matching my mood. What's happened? I ask when she answers. Your father's legal team just filed additional motions. They're asking for all copies of any documents related to the chest to be surrendered to the court. I lean against the brick wall. I can't keep taking time off work for this. My supervisor already warned me today about my absences. That's not all, Clara says. I think someone's been watching my office. The same car has been parked across the street for 3 days. My exhaustion deepens. This morning, I got an anonymous call telling me to drop the case before it goes too far. Just a voice I didn't recognize. Then they hung up. Did you report it? What would I say? Someone made a vague threat? I kick at a pebble on the concrete. Last night, someone broke into my car. Nothing was taken, but my files were clearly searched. The police called it random vandalism. Brittany, Clara's voice turned serious. They're trying to intimidate you because they're scared. This proves we're onto something significant. I watch rain begin to speckle the pavement. Is vindicating Mom worth risking everything I've built? My job, my savings, maybe even my safety? The question hangs between us, punctuated by the increasing rainfall. That evening, I'm organizing files in my apartment when my phone rang. It's Joyce, the court clerk I befriended during my first year as a public defender. Brittany, I shouldn't be telling you this, she whispers, but Judge Alcott had a private meeting with your father last week. No attorneys present, no record on the docket. My heart pounds. Are you certain? I saw them myself. They used Alcott's private chamber entrance, but I was dropping off transcripts next door. Joyce pauses. This isn't the first time I've noticed irregularities with Alcott. Other attorneys have mentioned patterns in his rulings that consistently favor certain firms, including your father's. Cars says 1. I grab a notepad. Joyce, this could be critical to our case. Ex parte communications are serious ethics violations. There's more, she says. I overheard a conversation between Alcott's clerk and your father's assistant. Apparently, Leonard's firm handles all of Alcott's personal tax matters, has for years. The pieces click together. That's a clear conflict of interest. I have to go, Joyce says suddenly. Be careful, Brittany. This goes beyond your mother's case. I've seen similar patterns in at least 6 other cases before Alcott this year alone. After hanging up, I sit motionless, processing this revelation. This extends beyond a personal vendetta against my mother. It suggests systemic judicial abuse affecting countless others who lack the resources or knowledge to fight back. I call Clara immediately. We need to talk in person, not over the phone. An hour later, we sit in Clara's office with the blinds drawn. She's swept for listening devices. Perhaps an abundance of caution, but recent events justify paranoia. Joyce confirmed Alcott had private meetings with my father, I tell her, and Leonard's firm handles Alcott's taxes. Clara nods slowly. That explains the pattern I've uncovered in Alcott's rulings. This is bigger than we thought. This isn't just about Mom anymore, I say, newfound determination replacing my earlier doubt. It's about everyone they've hurt through this corruption. We spend the next 2 hours developing our strategy. We'll continue the probate case while preparing a detailed judicial complaint with Joyce's evidence. The ethics violations give us leverage without revealing we know about the classified material yet.
We need to move quickly, Clara warns. Your father's pushing for immediate acquisition of the chest. The urgency suggests whatever evidence exists might have a time component. I nod, feeling more resolved than I have in weeks. I've moved the key documents to a bank vault. Copies are with trusted friends in case something happens. Rain lashes against the windows as we finalize our plans. The path ahead remains treacherous, but for the first time, I feel we have a fighting chance. They're getting desperate, I tell Clara as I prepare to leave. That means we're winning. As I step into the stormy night, I carry not just my mother's fight, but a broader purpose that makes every sacrifice worthwhile. Mark Delaney's call comes at 7:30 Tuesday morning, interrupting my first sip of coffee. His voice carries an uncharacteristic urgency. Miss Wright, my client would like to schedule an immediate settlement conference, today, if possible. I almost dropped my mug. After months of aggressive delays and procedural roadblocks, this sudden change feels like a trap. Why the rush? I ask, signaling Clara across my kitchen table. She looks up from her legal pad, eyebrows raised. My client is prepared to withdraw all objections to the inheritance, Delaney says smoothly. Leonard believes this has gone on long enough. Clara scribbles a note and slides it across to me. Don't agree to anything. We can meet at my office at noon, I say, buying time to prepare. Clara will accompany me. Of course, Delaney replies, too agreeable to be trustworthy. 3 hours later, we sat across from Delaney in his plush downtown office. The view of Puget Sound stretches behind him, a calculated power move. My father doesn't attend, another strategic choice. Let's get straight to the point, Delaney begins, sliding a document across the polished mahogany. Leonard is prepared to drop all claims against your mother's estate. You receive the full inheritance as originally stipulated in her will. The savings, the townhouse, everything. I scan the paperwork, waiting for the catch. Clara leans forward, professional but wary. All he asks, Delaney continues, watching my face, is that you relinquish the antique oak chest and its contents, a family heirloom from his side, as you know. The chest. Mom's final sanctuary, where she kept her most precious belongings. The mysterious journal Renee had mentioned might be inside. The chest belonged to my mother for 20 years after the divorce. He never wanted it before. Delaney adjusts his tie. My client has had time to reflect on family heritage. The chest has sentimental value. No, I say flatly. The chest stays with me. Something flickers in Delaney's eyes. Frustration, perhaps, or recalculation. He reaches for another document. Very well. Leonard is willing to compromise further. Keep the chest itself, but turn over the journal and photographs inside. That's all. My pulse quickens. They know about the journal, which means they know exactly what it contains. Additionally, Delaney says, sliding another paper forward, Leonard is prepared to offer a substantial financial settlement beyond the inheritance. $200,000. $200,000. The figure hits me like a physical blow. My public defender's salary barely covers my rent and student loans. $200,000 would change everything. This settlement would end your financial worries? Delaney pressed, sensing my hesitation. You could pay off your loans, perhaps even a down payment on a home. Secure your career without the constant struggle. Clara remains silent beside me, giving me space to process. The offer dangles before me. Freedom from debt, from constantly checking my bank balance, from taking on extra shifts to make ends meet. I should mention, Delaney adds with practiced casualness,
This offer expires at the end of business today. Leonard wants this resolved immediately. Back at Clara's office, I pace while she reviews the settlement papers. It's your decision, Brittany, she says finally. You've already achieved your original goal. The house, the savings, it's all yours under this agreement. But at what cost? I stop pacing, staring out at the Seattle skyline. If I hand over that journal, what happens to the truth? What about other potential victims? Clara sets the papers down. There's no guarantee we'll win the broader fight. This settlement is a sure thing. The familiar voice of my mother echoes in my memory. I was 16, facing pressure to cheat on a history final. Integrity matters most when it costs something, she'd said. Anyone can do the right thing when it's easy. If I settle, I say slowly, I get the inheritance, but I abandon any chance at accountability. For Mom, for anyone else they've hurt. The stress and uncertainty will continue if you refuse, Clara points out. This legal battle could stretch for years. Across the hall, Clara's paralegal peers in. Take the money and run, he advises. These powerful types always win anyway. The junior associate from down the hall has a different view. Some principles are worth the fight, even when the odds are bad. I recognize the pattern. This moment mirrors my father's choice decades ago. Moral compromise for personal gain. The path of least resistance. I stare at the settlement papers, something nagging at my thoughts. Why now? After months of aggressive tactics, why offer this generous settlement? Clara taps her pen against her legal pad. That's the question, isn't it? I grab my laptop, searching through the settlement documents more carefully. There, buried in paragraph 14, a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement. Permanent silence about all matters related to my mother's past, the court proceedings, and anything contained in her personal effects. The NDA would prevent any ethics complaint against Judge Alcott, I realize aloud. We couldn't use anything we found as evidence. Clara's eyes widened. She turns to her computer, typing rapidly. There's a judicial review committee next month, she says. Alcott's name is on the agenda. I have a contact on the committee. Apparently, there's been a preliminary investigation into his rulings. The pieces click into place. Leonard isn't worried about the chest or the inheritance. He's trying to resolve this case before an external investigation can connect the dots. My decision crystallizes. I grab my phone and dial Delaney's number. Ms. Wright, he answers smoothly. Have you made your decision? I have. I'm not interested in being bought off like the others. A pause. You're making a serious mistake, Delaney says, voice hardening. Some offers don't come twice. I'll take my chances, I reply. My mother deserved justice, not just a settlement. After hanging up, I meet Clara's gaze across her desk. You realize what this means? She asks. They'll come at us harder now. I nod, a strange calm settling over me. I know, but now we know why they're so desperate. And desperate people make mistakes. Clara smiles slightly. Your mother would be proud. Maybe, I say, picking up the discarded settlement papers. But that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because it's right. A week after gathering evidence, I spread the documents across Clara's conference table, each piece of evidence a stepping stone towards justice. Mom's journal lies open beside tax records, photographs, and the freshly signed affidavit from Major Caleb Monroe. We have everything we need, Clara says, tapping the formal motion for Judge Alcott's recusal.
These ethics violations are irrefutable. His relationship with your father during Blue Harbor, the pattern of biased rulings, the financial connections, it's all here. I run my fingers along the edge of Mom's journal, the pages worn from my repeated readings. And we're certain this strategy keeps the classified information as backup only? Absolutely. Clara organizes the documents into precise stacks. Judicial ethics violations are our primary angle. We don't need to expose Blue Harbor's operational details unless they force our hand. Renee Barrett nods, sliding a document across the table. I've prepared this context brief explaining Blue Harbor's structure without breaching security protocols. It establishes the connection without revealing classified operations. And I've requested an accelerated court date, Clara adds. Every day gives them more opportunity to tamper with evidence. Caleb Monroe, silver-haired with military posture intact despite retirement, reviews his affidavit one final time. I've corroborated the key elements from Elena's journal. The meetings between Leonard and Alcott during the project, their unauthorized access to surveillance data, everything that matters. Now we craft the public narrative, Clara says, pulling up a presentation on her laptop. Judicial ethics violation, plain and simple. No classified details, just a judge who failed to disclose significant conflicts of interest. I stand, practicing the composed responses we've rehearsed for hours. When Judge Sandoval asks about the nature of their relationship, I'll explain that my father and Judge Alcott worked together on a government contract, maintained financial connections, and deliberately concealed this history. Clara smiles. Perfect. Direct, factual, and compelling. The office door swings open without warning.
My father stands in the doorway, his appearance shocking me into silence. Leonard Wright, always impeccably dressed, looks disheveled, his tie askew, weight visibly lost from his frame, dark circles shadowing his eyes. "You have no idea what you're risking," he says, ignoring everyone else in the room. "This needs to stop, now, Brittany." Clara steps between us. "Mr. Wright, you're not welcome here. Any communication should go through proper channels." He ignores her, his gaze fixed on me. "This isn't just about your mother's inheritance anymore. You're playing with fire." I study him, noting the tremor in his hands, the uncharacteristic slump of his shoulders. For the first time since this battle began, I see fear behind his anger. "Your concern is noted," I say, surprised by my steady voice. But I'm not backing down. Judge Alcott has canceled 3 hearings, citing health concerns. Clara informs me after my father leaves, escorted by building security. "My sources at Hamilton and Burke say the partners are questioning Leonard's handling of your case. They're worried about exposure." I look out the window, spotting the unmarked sedan that's been following me between work and home for the past week. "They're scared." "Good," Clara says. I leaked a tip to the Seattle Times about an unusual judicial recusal motion being filed. Pressure increases scrutiny. "Are they coordinating their response?" Renee asks. Clara shakes her head. "Not effectively. Leonard wants to settle quietly. Alcott wants to fight it publicly, claiming national security concerns. They're undermining each other." Later that evening, we received notice of an emergency hearing scheduled before Judge Sandoval on the temporary information suppression motion. Our careful presentation strategy suddenly faces its first test. "We present the ethics violations without the classified details," Clara advises as we prepare. "Just enough to establish the pattern. If they invoke national security, we counter with your public defender experience. You've navigated security clearance issues before." I nod, arranging the documents for maximum impact. Layered revelation. We show the surface issues first, keeping the deeper evidence in reserve. The team works through the night, anticipating every counter-argument, preparing for the confrontation ahead. When everyone finally leaves, I close my eyes, practicing the meditation techniques my counselor recommended for managing courtroom anxiety. The weight of the hearing settles over me. Rain taps against the windows as I drive to the cemetery, needing this moment alone before everything changes. Standing before Mom's grave, I trace the engraving on her headstone. Elena Foster Wright, beloved mother. No mention of her service, her sacrifice, or the secrets she carried to protect me. "I understand now, Mom." I whisper, the rain mingling with my tears. "Why you stayed silent for so long, why you warned me about them. But I won't live in that shadow anymore." I place fresh flowers beside her name, then return to my car. Tomorrow will change everything. Morning arrives with Clara's final advice as we approach the courthouse steps. "Once we present this in open court, there's no going back," she warns. "The fallout will be significant." I touch Mom's locket around my neck, containing the only photo of us together that survived my father's vindictive purge after the divorce. "Mom spent years silenced by fear," I say, straightening my shoulders. "I won't be." Their attorney approaches with settlement papers. I shake my head without even looking at the offer. Clara stands beside me, Renee and Caleb flanking us in silent solidarity. The documents we've so carefully organized are tucked securely in my briefcase, each page a piece of the truth I've spent months assembling. I take a deep breath, feeling strangely calm as we climb the courthouse steps. The unmarked car is parked across the street. My father's Mercedes pulls up to the curb. Judge Alcott's reputation, my father's career, their decades of manipulation, all hanging in the balance of today's hearing. For the first time since this battle began, I feel no anxiety, no doubt, no hesitation. For the first time, I tell Clara, as we reach the doors, I'm not afraid of them anymore. The courtroom buzzes with activity, attorneys clustered in small groups as they await their cases on Judge Sandoval's crowded calendar. I sit beside Clara, my back straight against the hard wooden bench, watching the door. My heart thumps steadily against my ribs, not racing with anxiety as it has in previous hearings, but with the calm rhythm of someone who knows exactly what's coming. "Are you ready?" Clara whispers, arranging our files on the table before us. I nod, my eyes fixed on the entrance as my father strides in with Mark Delaney. Leonard's usual confident swagger seems diminished today, his shoulders tense beneath his tailored suit. He glances in my direction, his expression hardening when he sees my composed demeanor. "What's she up to?" I hear him mutter to Delaney as they take their seats at the opposing table. The bailiff calls the court to order as Judge Mara Sandoval enters. She's a woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair and reading glasses perched on her nose. Her reputation for thoroughness precedes her. Exactly what we need today. "I understand we have several motions before the court," Judge Sandoval says, shuffling through papers, including a last-minute filing from the Respondents' Council. Delaney stands. "Your Honor, given the sensitive nature of the allegations in Miss Wright's recusal motion, we filed a motion to seal these proceedings on national security grounds." A ripple of interest passes through the attorneys waiting for their cases. Judge Sandoval's eyebrows raise slightly as she reviews the new documents, taking her time.
I watch Leonard fidget with his gold cufflinks, a nervous habit I recognize from childhood. He leans over to whisper urgently to Delaney, who nods without looking at him. "Ms. Ruiz," Judge Sandoval says finally, "you may proceed with your argument regarding the recusal motion."
Clara rises, her voice clear and measured. Thank you, Your Honor. This recusal motion addresses clear ethical violations that have compromised the fairness of these proceedings. Delaney interrupts, standing quickly. Your Honor, these allegations involve sensitive national security matters that should not be aired in an open courtroom. Judge Sandoval regards him over her glasses. I understand your concern, Counselor, but I need more specificity. What exactly are we discussing that implicates national security without revealing classified details? Clara meets my eyes briefly before responding. Your Honor, we have documented evidence of ex parte communications between opposing counsel, Mr. Wright, and Judge Alcott that violate judicial ethics. These communications occurred outside proper channels and directly influenced rulings in this case. Leonard scribbles frantically on a notepad, shoving it toward Delaney with barely concealed urgency. Sweat gleams on his forehead despite the courtroom's chill. Furthermore, Clara continues, opening a folder. We have evidence that Judge Alcott has handled Mr. Wright's personal tax matters for the past 3 years while presiding over this case, a clear conflict of interest that was never disclosed. Judge Sandoval's expression shifts, concern evident in the tightening of her mouth. These are serious allegations, Ms. Ruiz. We have documentation, Your Honor. Clara slides the folder forward. Bank records showing payments from Leonard Wright's firm to Judge Alcott's private consulting business, correspondence regarding tax strategy, and records of meetings during the pendency of this case. The judge reviews the documents, her frown deepening with each page. Leonard stares straight ahead now, his knuckles white where he grips the edge of the table. The court will hear the full recusal motion without sealing the record, Judge Sandoval announces finally. Mr. Delaney, your motion to seal is denied. Please inform Judge Alcott that his presence is requested. A court officer leaves to fetch him. The minutes stretch with uncomfortable silence. Other attorneys watch with undisguised curiosity. Finally, the door opens, and Judge Alcott enters, his usual commanding presence diminished. His face is ashen as he takes a seat beside the bench. Before proceeding, Judge Sandoval says, I need to address the motion for recusal filed against Judge Alcott in the matter of Foster Estate. Judge Alcott clears his throat. While I see no direct conflict of interest that would necessitate my recusal, I stand, my chair scraping against the floor. Winter Lantern. Blue Harbor. 4 words. 4 simple words that drop into the courtroom like stones into still water, creating ripples of silence that spread until every eye is on me. Leonard half rises from his chair, naked panic flashing across his face before he can compose himself. Judge Alcott freezes, his knuckles whitening where they grip the armrest of his chair. Your Honor, I continue, my voice steady. My mother documented everything before her death. She served in signals intelligence, not as an office clerk as my father always claimed. Ms. Wright, Delaney interrupts. This is highly inappropriate. Your Honor, I press on, addressing Judge Sandoval while ignoring Delaney. I'm prepared to submit this evidence to the Judicial Ethics Committee if necessary, but I believe Judge Alcott understands exactly what these documents contain. A man rises from the back of the courtroom, Caleb Monroe in his crisp suit, his military bearing unmistakable even in civilian clothes. Your Honor, I'm Major Caleb Monroe, retired. I was a commissioned officer present during Operation Blue Harbor. I can verify the authenticity of the documents Ms. Wright references. The courtroom stills completely. Every attorney present understands the significance of what's happening, even without knowing the details. Court personnel exchange glances. This is no longer just another probate dispute, but something that will be discussed in legal circles for months to come. I meet my father's eyes across the room. We don't seek to harm national security. We seek justice for my mother, whose final wishes have been obstructed through improper influence. Judge Alcott stares at his hands for a long moment, before raising his head. This court will grant the motion for recusal. I hereby recuse myself from all matters pertaining to the estate of Elena Foster, and order the case reassigned to Judge Mara Sandoval. The court clerk's mouth opens slightly in surprise, her fingers pausing over her keyboard before she continues typing. Leonard leans back in his chair, the fight visibly draining from him. Your Honor, Delaney says, we request an immediate recess to reassess our position in light of these developments. Judge Sandoval nods. The court will recess for 30 minutes. As people file out of the courtroom, Leonard approaches me in the aisle, stepping close enough that only I can hear him. You have no idea what you're doing, he whispers, desperation edging his voice. I look directly into the eyes so similar to my own. I know exactly what I'm doing. Drop the case, issue a public apology for questioning Mom's competence, and this goes no further. He searches my face, perhaps looking for the little girl who once sought his approval, who believed in his infallibility. You're making a mistake, he says, but the threat sounds hollow now. No, Dad. The mistake was thinking Mom wouldn't protect herself. She knew you'd come after her estate. She prepared for it. The new power dynamic settles between us like an invisible current. For the first time in my life, I watched my father back down. Later that afternoon, Delaney filed a notice of voluntary dismissal.
We sit before Judge Sandoval as she reviews the history of the case with evident skepticism. I see numerous procedural irregularities in the previous hearings, she notes, flipping through the file. Given the voluntary dismissal and my review of the original will and medical records, the court finds that Elena Foster was of sound mind when executing her will. The estate shall be distributed according to her wishes. Relief washes through me in a warm wave. 8 months of fighting, of watching my mother's dignity questioned, finally ended. Additionally, Judge Sandoval continues, Judge Alcott has formally recused himself from all matters related to the Wright and Foster families. Outside the courtroom, a reporter from the local legal newspaper approaches us. Ms. Wright, can I get a comment on this unusual case resolution? There are rumors circulating about classified information and judicial misconduct. This was about honoring my mother's wishes, I say, keeping my voice neutral. Nothing more. As the reporter moves away, the court clerk, Joyce, passes by with an armful of files. She pauses beside me. I filed an internal report about the previous hearings, she says quietly. What happened wasn't right. Ken colors. Clara squeezes my arm as we walk toward the elevator. We won, completely. I nod, thinking of my father's public statement released just minutes ago. I withdraw any suggestion that my former wife was impaired when creating her will. The elevator doors close, and for the first time since my mother's death, I let myself cry. Not from grief, but from relief. Mom's reputation remains intact.
Her modest savings, the townhouse where I grew up, and the oak chest containing her journals and photographs will remain with me, as she intended. Later, I stand in that townhouse, running my fingers over the carved lid of the chest that started this whole battle. Inside lies the evidence that brought my father down. Classified operation names written in my mother's neat handwriting, documents that connected Judge Alcott to Leonard through old military contracts, proof of their long association that should have been disclosed. We did it, Mom, I whispered to the empty room. We did it. The chest contains so much more than legal leverage. It holds my mother's true history, the woman she was before she became my mother, before she met Leonard Wright, the medals she never displayed, the commendations she never mentioned, the life she set aside. I close the lid gently. Tomorrow I'll begin sorting through these remnants of her life. Tonight I savor the victory that finally gives her the respect she deserved. 2 days later, the law firm's letterhead looks different when it arrives, addressed to my father instead of from him. I smooth the paper on my kitchen counter, rereading the paragraph that begins with, Internal review of all cases handled by Leonard Wright. My fingers trace the words, pending investigation and professional conduct concerns. Judge Alcott's medical leave announcement made yesterday's court circular. The Judicial Review Board's interest in his case history, particularly those involving my father, wasn't mentioned, but Renee's contacts confirmed it's happening. 3 other attorneys called me this morning, each hesitantly describing patterns they'd noticed in Alcott's courtroom when Leonard appeared before him. Ms. Wright? A reporter's voicemail plays on the speaker. We're doing a piece on Judge Alcott's unusual recusal. Many experienced judges don't step down mid-case without explanation. Would you care to comment? I delete the message without returning the call. Some victories deserve privacy. Clara arrives with coffee and a smile that could light up Seattle's darkest winter day. Your mother built the perfect case from beyond the grave, she says, setting a cardboard tray on my counter. The evidence was meticulous. The timeline is impeccable. She always was thorough, I say, pulling the executor's release form from my bag. Look what arrived this morning. Full access to everything. No restrictions. The chest sits in my living room now, its brass hardware gleaming in the afternoon light. No more court battles, no more delays. Everything my mother wanted me to have is finally legally mine. That night, I slept in my mother's townhouse for the first time since winning the case. The bedroom walls still hold her favorite watercolor landscapes. Her reading chair sits by the window, where morning light will stream through. I curl under her quilt and feel wrapped in her protection, just as I had been all along without knowing it. Renee and Caleb visit the following weekend, bringing old photographs and stories from my mother's military days. Elena never talked about what happened because she was protecting you, Renee says, patting my hand. Your mother would be proud of how you handled this. Caleb nods. She fought with documentation and patience. You did exactly the same. 6 months pass in a blur of change. I continue my work as a public defender, but something fundamental has shifted. I stand taller in courtrooms now, challenge inappropriate rulings with precision rather than frustration. When Judge Martinez tries to rush through a questionable warrant in one of my cases, I cite 3 precedents and request proper review without a hint of uncertainty in my voice. The framed photo of my mother sits on my desk at work, not the formal portrait from her funeral program, but one Renee gave me. Elena in her Air Force uniform, young and confident,
eyes bright with purpose. Beside it lies her leather-bound journal, its most important excerpts preserved, and others carefully redacted before submission to the Ethics Committee. I've started mentoring first-year public defenders on maintaining ethical boundaries in challenging situations. Document everything, I tell them. Preparation is power. Preparation. Leonard lost his partnership after the firm's review. We pass each other occasionally in courthouse hallways now. Him with fewer clients, me with growing confidence. Our exchanges are brief, civil. The rage that once burned through me has cooled into something calmer. The satisfaction of truth finally acknowledged. The Washington State Bar Association invited me to speak at their spring conference about judicial accountability. I titled my presentation, Methodical Justice, When Process Protects Truth. Mom would have appreciated the careful wording. The townhouse in Tacoma no longer feels like a battleground. I've arranged her books on shelves, displayed her photographs, and placed her favorite blue ceramic mace where sunlight catches it each afternoon. The oak chest sits in the living room now, no longer holding secrets but filled with family photos, her military commendations, and mementos I've rediscovered. Last month, a young woman came to my office with a familiar story. A judge with connections to opposing counsel, rulings that defied legal reasoning, procedural delays without merit. Instead of simply sympathizing, I pulled out a fresh legal pad. Tell me every detail, I said. We're going to document the pattern. I showed her how to file for judicial review, how to request specific documents through properly worded motions, how to build a case methodically rather than react emotionally. Sometimes justice requires patience and preparation, I explained, hearing my mother's wisdom in my own words. The Elena Foster Integrity Fund launched with $35,000 from my inheritance. Its mission, providing legal resources to those facing judicial bias. 3 cases of misconduct have already been exposed through the fund's support. Next year, we hope to expand our scope and perhaps develop a guest lecture series for law students about ethical boundaries in practice. Today, I placed fresh flowers on my mother's grave. The autumn wind rustles oak leaves overhead as I tell her about the fund's progress, about the cases we're supporting, about my plans to approach Seattle University's law program about a potential workshop series. You taught me that sometimes the most powerful words are the ones you save until exactly the right moment, I say, adjusting the flowers against her headstone. I think about all she kept hidden to protect me, all she documented to empower me when the time was right. The wind lifts my hair as I stand to leave, carrying my final words to her. Justice isn't always about revealing everything. Sometimes it's about knowing precisely when and how to use the truth.